Good Shabbos, everyone. I'm Cantor David Prozer from Kehillat Bet HaMidrash, Kempsville Conservative Synagogue in Virginia Beach. And this is our Torah commentary for this week, Shabbat of June 6th, 2020, the 10th of Sivan, 5780. As usual, we thank Rabbi Adam Rosenbaum, Rabbi Joseph Prauser, and the United Synagogue series of Torah Sparks for their various teachings and publications on this week's Parsha. This Shabbat, June 6th, we read the Parsha of Naso, found in the book of Bamidbar. The Parsha begins on page 791 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash and page 586 of the Hertz. Parshat Naso is the longest portion in the Torah, 176 verses. The Israelites continue their final preparations to leave Sinai, as the census and accounting of the tribe of Levi continues. The Levitical clan of Gershon is commanded to watch over the tabernacle curtains, and the clan of Merari is made responsible for the structure. God instructs Moshe, the ritual purity of the camp is to be maintained by removal of those who contract impurity, as by bodily eruption or by contact with a corpse. The moral purity of the Israelite camp is also addressed, and a process for redressing personal offenses is prescribed, including confession, restitution, and a ritual offering. A person who has wronged another by theft must confess his or her sins, make restitution with a 20% fine added, and bring an offering to complete his or her atonement. Parsha continues with the ritual for the sotah, the suspected adulteress. In the absence of actual proof or substantive evidence, a married woman suspected of adultery by her husband is subjected to trial by ordeal and compelled to drink bitter waters, in which the dust from the sanctuary floor and scrapings from a parchment on which a series of curses and adjurations recited by the priest during the ordeal has been inscribed and then mixed in. An offering of jealousy consisting of barley flour is presented at the altar. The ritual instructions provide that a woman guilty of unfaithfulness will have dire bodily reactions to the potion, while an innocent wife will be unharmed. The extensive passage dealing with the sotah and the unseemly specter of marital faithlessness is followed immediately by a very different ritual, the vow of the Nazarite, an expression of extraordinary faith and devotion to God. An Israelite man or woman may temporarily undertake a heightened state of personal consecration through a vow of self-denial, refraining from wine, other intoxicants, as well as other grape products. The Nazarite is to avoid ritual impurity contracted through contact with a corpse, even in order to attend to the burial or mourning for a close relative. Finally, the Nazarite's hair is consecrated and must not be cut. Scripture's ambivalence about the ascetic nature of the Nazarite is reflected in the sin offering, which is brought to mark the conclusion of the devotee's term of consecration, suggesting that the associated self-denial is, though carried out with holy intent, sinful in its own right. The priestly blessing is prescribed as a primary duty of the Kohanim. The blessing is famous for its beauty as well as its intricate poetic structure. The 3 verses address 6 divine acts of favor: blessing, protection, shining, graciousness, divine attention, and the bestowing of peace. The Parsha continues with a lengthy and repetitive listing of the dedicatory gifts brought by the tribal princes at the consecration of the sanctuary, the Mishkan. Chapter 7 describes these gifts in 89 verses, built mostly from 12 near identical blocks. Each block records the same gift for the tabernacle, brought by each of the 12 chieftains over the course of 12 days. The Torah recounts each gift with elaborate, repetitive precision. The equal status of the respective tribes and their chieftains in this inauguration ceremony is meant to overcome any resentments or rivalries among them. This section has been selected as the Torah reading for the 8 days of Hanukkah. The Parsha concludes with a description of God's ongoing communication with Moshe, the divine voice emanating from between the two cherubim over the cover of the ark. The Haftorah for this Shabbat is from the book of Judges, chapter 12, verses 2 to 25, beginning on page 813 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash and page 602 of the Hertz. I would add a personal note about this being the first Haftorah that I learned, because it was my bar mitzvah portion. But in actuality, I was in a bar mitzvah class where I had to listen to all of the Bochorim who had bar mitzvahs before me chant their Haftorah portions before it was my turn. Consequently, the very first Haftorah that I learned was one called Machar Chodesh, the portion recited when Rosh Chodesh falls on the Sunday, the day after the Shabbat, on which the Haftorah is recited, as it did the week before my bar mitzvah in 1900. The comparison as to why this Haftorah was chosen is because part of today's Torah reading recounts a religious institution known as Nazirut. This unusual religious status requires its adherents who become Nazirim, plural of the word Nazir, through a vow to refrain from wine and grape products, to refrain from impurity, and to not cut his or her hair, usually for a period of 1 month. The Haftorah relates the story of the birth of one of the most famous biblical heroes of all, the miraculously strong Samson. His birth and life also involve Nazirut. An angel of God appears to Samson's mother, who is barren, and tells her that she will bear a son. She is also told not to drink wine or other intoxicants, or to eat anything unclean, and to let no razor touch her son's head, because he is destined to be a Nazirite to God. In contrast to today's Torah reading, we see that the Nazirut in the Samson story differs from that as described in the Torah, in that it is Samson's mother who is told to refrain from wine and from impurity. Abstention from these things does not apply to her son. Only the prohibition against cutting hair applies to Samson. The Haftorah goes on to describe the woman's relating this event to her husband, Manoach, and then goes on to their meeting with the angel of God, who repeats and confirms the prophecy and the restrictions, and concludes with the birth of Samson. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, and as we say every week, we look forward to the day when we can do this in person in our respective sanctuaries at Temple Israel and at Kehilat Beit HaMidrash. Shabbat Shalom.